President Trump grants clemency to Alice Marie Johnson before heading to FEMA headquarters with the First Lady in Melania Trump's first public appearance outside the White House in nearly a month following surgery. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, and this is the Daily Briefing. The president is about to receive a briefing on preparations for the 2018 hurricane season. Earlier, he commuted the life sentence for Alice Johnson, a first-time nonviolent drug offender championed by Kim Kardashian West. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is live at the White House. The president might just be getting warmed up with these pardons. Is that right, John?
You know, traditionally, Dana, and you remember this, the president typically waits until the end of the year and then hands out a long list of pardons. This president likes to do them every few weeks or so, or at least it seems that way, recently pardoning the famous boxer Jack Johnson, the conservative commentator and filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza, and today issuing that commutation of the sentence for Alice Marie Johnson. Now, just to make the differentiation here, commuting a sentence does not pardon someone. It simply lets them out of jail. You remember from the Bush administration, President Bush commuted the sentence of Scooter Libby, but he did not pardon him. Let's look at how we got here most recently on Alice Johnson. Kim Kardashian came to the White House back on May the 30th to meet with President Trump on it. She was talking about prison reform with Jared Kushner, but also requested that Alice Johnson's sentence be commuted along with several other nonviolent offenders. She's currently serving a life sentence without possibility of parole at the Aliceville Correctional Institution in Alabama. She was convicted of drug conspiracy and money laundering, part of a cocaine trafficking operation in Tennessee in 1996. In commuting her sentence, the White House said in a statement, quote, Ms. Johnson has accepted responsibility for her past behavior and has been a model prisoner for over the past 2 decades. Despite receiving a life sentence, Alice worked hard to rehabilitate herself in prison and act as a mentor to her fellow inmates. The president is also considering a petition for Matthew Charles, a person you'll be familiar with from watching Dana's Fine program here. He sold crack cocaine to an undercover officer in 1996. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison for drug offenses. In 2016, under the Obama administration era rules, Charles received a sentence reduction and was released after serving 21 years. But in 2017, a federal court ruled that Charles's sentence was reduced in error, that he actually was not eligible for the Obama era redefinement of prison terms. And on May 14th, he reported to prison to serve the remaining 14 years of his sentence. Charles had a lot of support from conservatives who feel that his re-imprisonment was an unfair application of the sentencing rules. Dana?
Yeah, I think there is bipartisan agreement on that. So it'll be interesting to see what else comes of those efforts. I know Jared Kushner working hard on that as well. Let me ask you also, Melania Trump is going to join the president at the FEMA briefing this hour. And this will be the first time she's been seen on television in 26 days, which some people seem to think it's been 26 months. I mean, it's really not been that long, people.
Well, you know, here at the White House, things seem to be elongated in terms of time. We like to say that you mark time in dog years here. Every day is 7 days long. Every year is 7 years long. So for the First Lady to be away for a little more than 2 weeks, it does feel like an awfully long time. But she had not been seen in public until Monday night, ever since that operation, that embolization procedure on her kidney at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. That prompted a whole lot of speculation by some news outlets as to what might be going on. But she did appear at a Gold Star Families event with the president on Monday, and then she's going to be traveling to FEMA for the hurricane briefing this afternoon. The president taking a shot at the collective news media for all the speculation surrounding the First Lady, saying, quote, the fake news media has been so unfair and vicious to my wife and our great First Lady Melania during her recovery from surgery. They reported everything from near death to facelift to left the White House and me for New York or Virginia, and all the way to abuse. All fake. She is doing really well. So we'll get eyes on the First Lady in person on television for the first time this afternoon, and people can make up their own minds.
All right. Indeed. And I do think that, you know, all of those things were a little bit over the line, but the suggestion of abuse was just way overboard, and I'm glad that he called them out on it. All right. John Roberts, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Mitch McConnell is canceling most of the August recess to help advance the president's priorities on Capitol Hill, while my next two guests are conducting a survey of Republican senators to help figure out the legislative priorities for the rest of the year. And joining us now is Senator Lamar Alexander and Senator Ted Cruz. Thank you both for arranging your schedule so that you could be here and to tell us about this. Senator Cruz, let me start with you. Why did you think that a survey or a poll like this was sort of necessary? Is there not some sort of consensus agreement amongst the party on what you want to do?
Well, I think in the last year and a half, we've accomplished a tremendous amount coming together both in Congress and the President. We've passed historic tax cuts that are benefiting jobs all over the country. We're seeing regulatory reform as job-killing regulations are reduced. We repealed the Obamacare individual mandate. We're confirming strong constitutionalist judges. But we need to keep moving forward. And so Lamar and I are working together to try to bring Republicans together, get 50 Republicans in the Senate on the same page to keep winning major legislative victories each and every day, the 7 months we've got remaining in 2018, so we can keep standing up for the men and women who elected us.
Senator Alexander, I understand that some of the items on the possible priority list are things like taking another stab at repealing and replacing Obamacare, a second round of tax cuts, or maybe perhaps making those tax cuts permanent, reining in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is somewhat underway under Mick Mulvaney, defunding Planned Parenthood, that comes up over and over, work requirements for federal welfare programs, and expanding gun rights. Is that right, that that's pretty much the comprehensive list of what you think is on the minds of fellow senators?
There are a lot of other things there. And what we've said to senators is, if you don't like the list that Ted and I sent you, why send us your list. But Ted said it exactly right. We think we've done more working with President Trump in the last 17 months than any other conservative government in the last 30 years. But we don't have a majority like this, Republican Congress and Republican President, often. Since 1932, over 86 years, we've had it 8 years. So if there's one more thing that we can do with 50 votes, Ted and I want to make sure we know what it is and recommend it to our caucus.
Yesterday, Senator McConnell said everyone's going to stay in Washington, D.C. in August, and I've been there plenty of August, and obviously a lot of people would like to be other places because it is a hot, sticky mess. But there's a lot of work to be done. Senator Schumer basically taking it in stride and saying, okay, fine, we want to work too. This is what he says they want to push during that health care, during recess in August.
We Democrats want to use the additional weeks in August to reverse those policies that so hurt the middle class. Without action, this August, in the fall, middle-class families are going to have their pockets picked by insurance companies with the aid and help of our Republican friends in the Senate and the President.
Senator Alexander, I've been following this, at least if you look at Democrats across the country, they always seem to rank health care as their #1 concern. And I wonder, because you're so intimately familiar in all the committee work that you do, is that a place where you think Republicans might be vulnerable going into the midterms?
I think if people know the facts, is where Democrats ought to be vulnerable. They passed Obamacare without a Republican vote. They refused to repeal it and replace it. And just a couple of months ago, President Trump, we, all of us on the Republican side, had offered a bipartisan your insurance rate, and the Democrats blocked it. So if they want to talk about health care, we can talk about that. But I think we want to talk about what Ted said, which is the best economy in 18 years, the biggest military growth in spending in 15 years. That's our agenda: taxes, judges, regulations.
I know that. Let me go to you, Senator Cruz, on this next one, because there was eye-popping numbers yesterday. We've all sort of known that with Social Security and Medicare, that these are not programs that are basically in good financial shape. Over 61 million people receive Social Security, retirement, or disability benefits. More than 58 million get Medicare. And yesterday, the government announced that for the first time since 1982, the Social Security system is going to exceed its income, and Medicare will be insolvent sooner than they thought, by 2026. Ben Shapiro, who is a conservative commentator, said this: our politicians won't do anything about it, however, because we don't have the guts to elect politicians who will tell us the truth about our benefits. And that means we'll kick the can down the road until there's no more road. Is it possible that entitlement reform would be put back on the list of priority items here?
Well, listen, I think Ben's exactly right, that there are too few politicians in Washington willing to take on entitlement reform. I think it's critical. 2/3 of our federal budget is the entitlement, it's interest on the debt. And I think we can and should come together, strengthen and reform Social Security and Medicare, protect those who are relying on the program now, and strengthen them to make sure they go forward in the future. But he's right that right now the Democrats oppose doing anything to strengthen those programs, and there are not enough Republicans willing to do it. I will tell you what we can get Republican support for and what we can get done this year, which is focus on economic growth. If you want to address the strength of entitlements, the best thing you can do is get growth of the economy up from the Obama years, 1% and 2%, back to 3%, 4%, 5%. That's why tax cuts, lifting regulation, what Lamar and I are doing, delivering real results for job creators, makes a big difference in terms of people's lives, but also the revenue in order to preserve and strengthen Social Security and Medicare.
Growth is good, but I don't know if it will be enough. Gentlemen, the president has just started speaking over at FEMA. I'm going to turn it over to him, and we'll listen in.
Jinky, keeping very busy. I know that, Ryan. That's good. It's good for you, right? Keeping busy and opening up those lands so people can use them and enjoy them. Largest landlord in the world, Ryan. Nobody knows that, but you're the largest, by far, the largest landlord. It's almost half the United States, if you think about it, right? Sure. So great job you're doing. Sonny Perdue. And those farms are doing well, and I did the farmers a big favor last night, right? I did a big favor for the farmers. We love the farmers, and they were happy. I know that Senator Grassley and Senator Ernst were very happy with what we did, so thank you for your help. I appreciate it. Wilbur Ross, Secretary, I appreciate it, Wilbur. We're renegotiating a lot of trade deals, and they're really fantastic. And we have the worst trade deals ever made, and we're going to have now fair trade deals. We have made the worst deals ever made. NAFTA is a disaster. World Trade Organization is a disaster. I could go deal after deal, and it's been very unfair to our country, to our workers, to our companies, and to everybody else involved, and we're changing them around rapidly. So Wilbur Ross, thank you very much. Secretary Alex Azar. Alex, I'm very proud of what you've done, and you're coming up in about another month with health care, maybe even sooner than that. We're going to have a great health care bill plan, and it's going to be great health care for a much smaller price than anybody ever thought possible. And I really appreciate that. And our new project that we're really working on very hard is reducing the cost of prescription medicine. And that's going to be something that people will not forget. Some people think that's almost more important than the health care. I've had people say, which is more important? They're both important. But we're reducing the cost of medicine because of what you're doing, and we appreciate it. Secretary Ben Carson, who's got some things going on at HUD that we're very excited. We had lunch the other day, and what you're doing is great, Ben. It's really inspirational. More than just brick and mortar, it's really inspirational, Ben, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you very much. Elaine Chao, Secretary, all you do is produce. You do it in a very quiet way and so effective and so incredible. What a job you're doing with transportation. It was a great decision. Thank you very much. Rick Perry. Rick is, I thought you were going to the VA, but we have great people at the VA, so now we don't have to worry about the VA. I think we have great. I always thought Vic, I'd put him right over in the VA, and you would have done great there too, but you're doing a fantastic job at Energy, and we're now the largest in the world at Energy, Rick, the largest in the world, and we're now exporting energy for the first time. Never did it. Now we're exporting energy, but we have become the largest energy producer in the world. Who would have thought? But we've opened it up a little bit, Rick, right? And we've let our people go and do their thing, and they're doing a great job. Acting Secretary of the VA, Peter O'Rourke. And Peter, the combination of you and Wilkie, I think that's going to be an unbeatable combination. So thank you for all your help. I'm hearing only good things. Secretary Nielsen, I don't know, what do I say about you? You are doing great, and the border is coming along, and the wall is going up. We have $1.6 billion being spent on phase 1 of the wall, and we'll get additional funding. And every week that goes by, people realize it more and more that we have to have the wall, and we're doing great in San Diego and different places. General John Kelly is here someplace. General, good General, great job, John. Administrator Scott Pruitt, thank you, Scott, very much. EPA is doing really, really well. And, you know, somebody has to say that about you a little bit. You know that, Scott. But you've done, I tell you, the EPA is doing so well, so many approvals and disapprovals. If they don't qualify, they don't qualify. But we don't have to wait 15 years to sell somebody they don't qualify. And people are really impressed with the job that's being done at the EPA. Thank you very much, Scott. Mick Mulvaney, he's got two hats on now, right, Mick? You've got two hats, not just one, and you're doing great at both. But Office of Management and Budget has been good, and our budget this year there'll be a lot of cutting because we want to cut. You know, Mick is really more of a cutter than the other, but we had to get the military through. We got $700 billion approved for military. We needed that. And in order to get that done, we had to do some things for the Democrats that we would normally not do because we consider a lot of it waste and a horror show. But in order to get our military and $6 billion care of, and very importantly, next year, $716 billion for military. So, Mick, great job. And this time you can start cutting, okay? Because we have our military taken care of now, so you can start really cutting. A friend of mine for a long time, Administrator Linda McMahon. And Linda, I was just being told the other day what you've done at small business has been incredible. One of the real stars. And Vince and myself and your family, we're all proud of you. But what you've done is fantastic. So much work. People don't realize your small business is really it's really a very massive business. And you add it all up, and those numbers are not small business. They're bigger than just about any company you can even think of. So congratulations, Linda. Thank you very much. Governor Rick Scott, we have a lot of people around and watching. You know, we're on screens all over the country and I think beyond. But we have Governor Rick Scott of Florida is there, and he's watching, and he's done a fantastic job. He's now running for the United States Senate, and I won't get political, but I think you're going to do very well, okay? That's not political, is it? Secretary Patrick Shanahan, deputy, who's, thanks, Patrick, really doing a job, and you're bringing in all that money under budget. I know that. You know, you're going to buy 2 airplanes instead of 1 for the same price, right? That's what we want. He did a fantastic job at the company that he worked for on that, and we appreciate that very much. And it's so important that when you go out and buy the equipment that we're talking about buying, you know, hundreds and hundreds of jet fighters and bombers and planes and boats and ships and everything, we got to get the great price, all right? We got to get the great price, and we can help you. Let us know, because there's very few things so important. Administrator Mark Green.
All right, you've been listening to President Trump. He's there at FEMA headquarters to get an update and a briefing on preparations for the hurricane season. The entire cabinet seems to be there. It's almost like an impromptu cabinet meeting. And they're concerned and want to make sure that they are on top of things before any hurricanes hit our shores this year. Also, First Lady Melania Trump, this is her first appearance in 26 days since she had surgery, and she is looking very well indeed. So I think those rumors can be put to rest. And we'll move on now.
We're in this race because New Jersey deserves a senator as good as its people, not one whose greatest accomplishment is staying one step ahead of the law.
New Jersey Senate candidate Bob Hugin addressing supporters last night after claiming victory in the Republican primary. He'll face off in November against Senator Robert Menendez, who also won last night. Menendez going after Hugin, saying, "My opponent, greedy drug company CEO Bob Hugin, is going to have to answer for his record of driving up prices for cancer patients while making millions for himself." I'm joined now in studio by Bob Hugin. It's really good to have you here. Congratulations to you. Menendez actually won by less in his primary than they thought. Only 62% for an incumbent like that. How do you feel about last night's results?
I think last night's results were great. And first of all, great to be with you on the show. But I think the people of New Jersey spoke. They said, listen, corruption is is bad for the state. It's bad for everybody. And what he's done is not good. And he's failed New Jersey. At the same time, they want bipartisanship. They want solutions to the problems. So I think there's a clear statement on the Democratic side, and we welcome those voters to our side that are disillusioned with what they have there. And we really want to have a big tent and invite everybody in. And we're very happy with the results that we saw last night for us.
Well, and there's a poll from the Fairleigh Dickinson University that says that, and this is early polls, of course, but 24% say they'd vote for you, 28% for Menendez, 46% are undecided. So it seems to me like if you are an incumbent, you might be worried about a poll like that because it shows that there are people that are willing to take a look at somebody else.
Well, I think especially Senator Menendez has been in Washington for 25 years. And when you have 46% undecided, that means it's a shift from what they historically have been and where they're looking now. And my name recognition is going up continually. People get to know me. They know I care about people. I care about the issues of New Jersey. We're going to put New Jersey first. We're very optimistic that poll is reflecting the momentum we're seeing.
He laid his cards on the table for how he's going to attack you. And it's going to be because you've been involved in the pharmaceutical industry. You have been very successful. And I do think across the country, Democrats are going to focus on health care and the high cost of it, and especially when it comes to prescription drug prices. The president has said there are some things that we want to do from the federal government level. How do you plan to respond to those attacks?
I think on a couple different fronts. One, we need to fix health care. You saw the latest funding issues, Social Security and Medicare.
Yes, we were just talking about that with Senator Cruz.
Yeah, well, we need to get health care reformed, and there's lots of things we can do. Democrats and Republicans agree about 75, 80% of the things that need to be done to reform payment systems, to decentralize Medicaid. Lots of things that can be done that we agree on, but partisan gridlock is stopping that. So I'm going to campaign on the reform of health care. I've spent 20 years in the biotech industry, 11 years in helping Atlantic Health System, a very forward-looking integrated clinical care system. We've got to reform health care. That's one thing. But let's be clear. Senator Menendez is not the right person to be talking about reform in any kind of area of health care or pharmaceuticals explicitly. One, he's been one of the poster childs for taking more money from the industry than anybody else. His best friend, so-called best friend, Dr. Saul Melgen, 67 felony convictions for defrauding Medicare, and he's going to tell us. And just the last thing. Celgene, I'm proud of what we accomplished there. We've turned terminal diseases into chronic disease on the cusp of cures. An incredible patient assistance program. People get the drugs they need. We're going to talk about the facts.
Bob Hugin, it's a race that is now going to be competitive. Congratulations on your win last night. Eagles players speaking out after being shut out from the White House yesterday. We're going to have a live report from Philadelphia next. Fox News alert on the Philadelphia Eagles speaking out. The players now reacting after President Trump canceled their Super Bowl victory celebration at the White House over the national anthem controversy. Brian Yennis is live in Philadelphia. Brian, what did the players have to say?
Hi, Dana. Well, this was supposed to be just an ordinary practice, actually a practice that's supposed to be routine and boring, but it was anything but today, given what happened yesterday, the whole White House controversy. We just heard from the players, actually two key players, including Chris Long. He is the defensive end for the Philadelphia Eagles. He is a white player who has stood by his teammates and all NFL players who have chosen to kneel during the national anthem, who have chosen to kneel during the national anthem. He said this about the whole controversy just moments ago.
To me, not going to the White House had nothing to do with the anthem. I said I wouldn't go to the White House a long time ago, so I'm the wrong guy to ask on that one. But at the end of the day, wasn't ever personally going, so at the end of the day, it made no difference to me.
Chris Long making it clear he doesn't want to get into a tit-for-tat with the White House. He wants the message to concentrate on social and racial inequality. And his teammate, Malcolm Jenkins, who has been very vocal about this entire issue and really the team leader, well, he was at his locker just moments ago, but he chose not to speak. He brought out posters, and on those posters, he wrote more than 60% of people in prison are people of color. Again, he held up another poster in 2018, 439 people shot and killed by police thus far. And then he wrote, "You aren't listening," in big capital letters, and then proceeded to walk out of the locker room. He had initially posted this on Twitter yesterday. The decision by the White House was made to lie and paint picture that these players are anti-America, anti-flag, and anti-military. We will continue to fight for impacted citizens and give a voice to those who never had one. So the president says that the players didn't want to come to the ceremony because of the national anthem. The players here are insisting that's not the case. case. And again, we also heard from the head coach, Doug Peterson, who said, look, we are moving on. It's over. This is what he said earlier today.
I was looking forward to going down, obviously. You know, we did something last season that was very special. It's a milestone here in the city of Philadelphia, our organization, and I was looking forward to going down and being recognized as world champions. And, you know, it is what it is.
The coach says the team is united, but obviously the Philadelphia Eagles organization choosing not to get into a war of words with the White House.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. A new report finding the Obama administration allowed Iranian access to the American banking system. We're going to be live at the State Department with that story next. Plus, Democrats averting disaster in the California primaries last night. So how will Republicans fare in November? The head of the NRCC, Congressman Steve Stivers, join me next.
Dad's going to like the way he looks.
A new detail uncovered linked to the Iran nuclear deal. Fox News learning that the Obama administration green-lighted Iranian access to the U.S. banking system, issuing a waiver that would have allowed the transfer of billions of dollars through American institutions. Rich Edson is live at the State Department. Rich, this felt like a bombshell report today when I read it.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dana. And, you know, Iran was in a really tough spot here towards the end of the Obama administration. It had access to a number of bank accounts it held around the world, all because of the Iran nuclear deal. But it had a problem with this one bank account in Oman. It had $6 billion there, and that money was in local currency. So if Iran wanted access to that money and use it around the world, it would have to convert it to euros or dollars. So according to this report by the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, the United States, with the Obama administration, granted a license to essentially help out Iran, allow it to divert that money through a U.S. bank and convert it to euros, even though officials would say that they weren't going to allow them to do that.
The Iranians badly wanted access to the U.S. financial system, and I think they were making that a condition for the agreement, for the final agreement. And so, although they were saying to the Congress, the officials at the Treasury Department, that there was no access, in fact, they granted a specific license to be able to have access to the system.
Now, a former administration official refused to go on the record, though tells us that the license fulfilled U.S. commitments under the nuclear agreement to, quote, give Iran access to pools of its money held overseas. The specific license cannot be described as granting access to the U.S. financial system. Now, the report does go on to say that Iran never took advantage of this license. That's because the administration pushed U.S. banks, 2 of them, to execute this deal so that Iran could access this money, and that those banks refused because essentially they didn't want to do business with Iran. The report says they believe eventually Iran got that money using European banks in smaller installments over time. Dana.
All right, Rich, thank you for that. The field is now set in the California governor's race. Democrat Gavin Newsom will take on Republican Congressman John Cox in November. Cox won the second most votes in yesterday's primary. And Peter Doocy is in Del Mar, California. I used to live there. I had a one-bedroom apartment with my husband there years ago. So you are in a great place. Peter, does the Republican candidate for governor want President Trump's help? I think so.
And he's already got some help from the president by way of a modified Trump slogan.
Let's together make California the Golden State once again.
So Californians that support the Trump agenda have a candidate for governor who does too. And the first day of this campaign is shaping up to be a black and white choice between a candidate who would help implement President Trump's plans, Republican John Cox, and a candidate who would defy it every chance he gets, Democrat Gavin Newsom.
We're a state where we don't criminalize diversity, we celebrate diversity. And where we invest in children, Jeff Sessions, invest in children where we don't tear them from the loving arms of their mothers and their fathers.
And Newsom has already tweeted to President Trump today with a message that he hopes he comes to California and does a lot of campaigning for his Republican opponent, John Cox. Dana.
It's going to be exciting out there in California this year. Did the Democrats wind up being left off any November ballots? That was a concern that we talked about yesterday.
And they did not. The Democrats had been worried that they had so many candidates in some of these districts that they'd split up the vote too many ways. No Democrats would come in first or second place in some districts, and they would be left off the November ballot. But that didn't happen. And so now the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee tells us this: the DCCC's data-driven investments to California will continue to pay dividends in November and beyond. And Republicans once again mismanaged their investments and missed the opportunity to have a real impact. But one of the Republicans who got far more votes than any of his Democratic challengers in a hotly contested district, Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, is not impressed.
How many times do we have to hear, oh, there's a blue wave and it's going to knock us all down? Well, the blue wave didn't hit.
And now that Democrats have far fewer candidates on ballots because primary day is behind us, they'll be able to funnel resources and staff more directly. So they're going to try to see what they can do about that blue wave between now and November. Dana.
All right, Peter, thank you. Now let's bring in the chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee, Ohio Congressman Steve Stivers. You're in charge of the Republicans trying to keep the House this fall, and I know that you feel pretty good about it. Let me read you one tweet from an elections analyst guy, G. Elliott Morris, who said they made gains. They made gains between 6 and 20% last night. He's talking about the Democrats compared to vote totals in 2016. And Morris says, projecting to November, Democrats are ahead in 3 of those districts, 49, 25, and 10. And I only bring that up because I do think that everyone has agreed now that at this point, a wave does not look like it's possible. So the Democrats are having to look very specifically at certain races that they think that they can target. Your thoughts?
Well, that's right, Dana. It's great to be on. And, you know, it certainly doesn't look like a blue wave. It might be a blue dribble. But right now, last night, 3 things happened. One is we got a Republican candidate for governor, and that's going to help turnout among Republicans. 2 is we tested our turnout messages, and they worked. We had more Republican turnout in every congressional district that's competitive except 1. So I feel really good about that. And finally, the gas tax that's on the ballot in November proved to be a very potent subject in a recall vote in Orange County and L.A. County yesterday against a state senator, Democrat state senator, who lost his recall vote to a Republican last night.
I know that gas is up to about $5 a
really
gallon.
Matter for us.
Yes, gas up to about $5 a gallon in Orange County.
$5 a gallon.
That'll motivate you to get to the polls.
Right.
The DCCC says that all of their red to blue candidates in the primaries yesterday went through. So they feel like that they have been strategic and smart on the way to this. Is California something that, you know, are you going to continue to worry about that, or are you going to move on and look to other places like Colorado, New York? And I also want to ask you about Martha Roby in Alabama. She's the incumbent, but forced into a runoff yesterday.
Right, and we're going to continue to focus on California. We have an enduring presence there. We have an office in Irvine. I feel really good about our chances to hold all of those seats, and I'll announce something today. Congressman Pete Aguilar, a Democrat incumbent, actually got less votes than Sean Flynn in his race yesterday. So that's going to be a major target for us now. It's new on our target list. Pete Aguilar, I think, showed yesterday his weakness in finishing second as a sitting incumbent. Obviously, we're going to continue to move to where the new primaries are and where the general elections are moving forward. But there are some competitive races in California that we're going to stay focused on and make sure our candidates win. Obviously, Martha Roby finished really strong last night. She got above 40%, but she didn't get to 50. So now she has a runoff against Bobby Bright, a former Democratic congressman who now claims he's a Republican. But I think in the runoff, he's going to have a hard time explaining his vote for Nancy Pelosi in 2009.
In the last minute that I have for you, I know that the Democrats are touting, and they have a right to. 345 Democratic candidates are women running. But I feel like the Republicans have really focused on this, and you have a good story to tell here as well. I'll give you the last word.
Thanks, Dana. I appreciate you letting us do that. We have more women candidates candidates than any time for the Republican Party in seats we can win. Last night, we had Young Kim win in the 39th. She's our nominee. We had Diane Harkey win in the 49th. She's our nominee. We've got great women like Mimi Walters, who's one of our deputy chairs here at the NRCC, that got 55% of the vote last night and did really well. So we've got lots of great new women. Just last night, Kristi Noem, who had been a member, has now won the gubernatorial primary in South Dakota. So we've got great women that are members of the House that are going on to do other things, but we also have great women candidates behind them and some incredible recruits like Leah Marquez Peterson in Arizona, who is going to be a great candidate in Arizona too, and Maria Elvira Salazar in Florida 27.
Well, we don't have time to name them all, but we will keep an eye on all of them, and we appreciate